Hello. Thank you, Gun Rights Policy Conference, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Tony Simon, and I host the Second is for Everyone Diversity Shoot and the Second is for Everyone podcast. I didn't start out being an advocate whatsoever. I started out just as a normal kid that liked firearms. I was that kid that could name every gun in every movie. From Clint Eastwood to John Wayne to Shaft. I could tell you every gun in the movie and a TV show. I read really cool books like Louis L'Amour books, Casca, Mac Bolan. I read Soldier of Fortune magazine. I just liked firearms as a child. I grew up in Virginia where firearms had no stigma attached to them. Most everyone had shotguns, 22s. I had a really cool uncle that had a lot of cool guns, lever actions, bolt actions, 6-shooters. Loved hanging out with him, loved being able to shoot his guns. That's how I grew up. Never thought about the Second Amendment. Never thought about having my access to firearms limited in any way whatsoever. Joined my first Second Amendment group when I was 15 years old because it was a requirement to be on the school air rifle team. We shot competitively. You had to be an NRA member to get on the team. Still didn't think about Second Amendment advocacy, even if I got the magazine every month. What changed for me was moving to New Jersey. What changed was the first time I had restrictions upon what I could purchase, and I had to ask the government for permission to own firearms. They had to do a background check on me. I had to have references. Made no sense because it's my right. In Virginia, I could walk in a store with a driver's license. They say it was me. They did a background check. I bought my firearm. I walked out the door the same day. Not the same in New Jersey. In New Jersey, 30 days, they had to do a background check on you. You had to pay fees. You had to get your fingerprints done. And still, they use the same background check they use in Virginia. Next check. Didn't bother me. I got mine. Well, then I became a firearms instructor. And I took classes, and I took defensive classes. And I figured out my politicians have no clue what they're talking about because I learned the statistics. I learned about the FBI crime report. And I learned what I guess I already knew, but it never came to the forefront. The criminals don't obey laws. So when Sandy Hook happened in 2012, after I had my training certificate, after I became a certified pistol, rifle, shotgun instructor, range safety officer, and started to teach classes, Sandy Hook happened and New Jersey legislators tried to push through every bill you can think of, from restricting ownership to restrictive features to reducing magazine capacity. And I decided enough's enough and I'm going to fight this the only way I can, using power of the people, using the telephone, using fax machines. My friend Sean and I wrote a letter, took all day to figure it out, how to word it correctly without being insulting, but trying to get our points across. And I posted it to my social media. He posted it to his, got a lot of responses, went viral. And that was my first step into advocacy. The first step into realizing, yes, my vote counts, but only as much as the next guy that voted against me. And the real voice and the real power we have as people is to use our voice to speak directly to our legislators and advocate for the things we believe in. That got me speaking to my legislators in the assembly for the very first time. And I was nervous because I'm just a regular guy, right? But then I realized it's my responsibility as a regular guy to ensure the rights we have today get passed to future generations. And the more I've done it, the more I realize it's a responsibility of us now, not to wait, not to think it won't affect us. It's our job to get on it now because the pendulum swings, and the pendulum is definitely swinging to the anti-gun side. We have court victories, but that's not where you want to win. You want to win when they propose a bill and you get them to back down. You win when you make the Second Amendment apolitical. And that's what I'm working on. So, what happened in 2015 was I started the Second is for Everyone diversity shoot at Gun for Hire range. It was a result of testifying and not seeing people that looked like me testifying for the Second Amendment. That's what I did. So at Gun for Hire range, we started the Second is for Everyone diversity shoot by inviting people to come in and learn about their Second Amendment rights. Not just black people, not just white people, but all people, regardless of your race, religion, gender. I don't care about your sexual orientation or your political background. My job as the head of the diversity shoot is to introduce you to firearms in a safe, inclusive manner where you can come, ask questions, talk to people, meet like-minded people, and become an advocate yourself and start pushing for your human right of self-defense. It bothered me. It bothered me that there are certain groups of people that think they speak for me based on my skin color. Well, that's the first generation of black man born in America with the same rights as anyone else after the 1968 Civil Rights Act. I'm the first generation, and I'm going to fight for my rights, all of them. And I'm not going to give them up because someone doesn't feel safe. You don't have a right to feel safe. You have a right to be able to defend yourself, your family, and your loved ones against anyone, including a tyrannical government. And if you don't exercise that right, it will be taken away from you. If you don't exercise your right as we the people to stand up and go, hey, legislators, work for me. And if you don't do what I ask, I will vote against you and vote someone else in. You financially support Second Amendment advocacy groups to fight for your rights on many levels, from your local level to your state level. Talk to people. Get politically active. Understand, you can deny what's happening, but it's happening. We've denied it here in New Jersey. Just 2 days ago, I was talking to someone about buying an AR-15 here, and they asked my suggestion, and I told them, and we were having a conversation. They were like, no one will be able to take our guns from us. No one? Take your guns away? You have your guns here in Jersey. You can see it over my shoulder right now. Yes, we have AR-15s, but they've limited the features, and here's a magazine we can legally have. They don't have to take your guns. They can limit everything from your access to them, to what you can install on them, to what features they have, to the number of rounds that it can hold. They can do all of that. They have done it and will do it in other states. There is no such thing as a free state anymore. You don't get a free pass. You need to fight for your rights now. I hate to be that dude, but we don't have the time for you to figure it out, to get around to it. You have to become an advocate. You have to become an advocate now. You want to start advocating on your local level? Great. You know the people. You can go to the meetings. You can see what's behind it, and you can see where your money's going. But you have to become part of the Second Amendment rights movement. If you don't, this could be your reality on a national level, because this is our reality here in New Jersey, and it's not because a bunch of people didn't try really hard, including me, to not have this happen. We need all of you. We need every firearms owner. We need all the new owners. We need the veteran owners that haven't gotten up and actually done anything yet. And it's going to take more than just your yearly membership. Thank you, Gun Rights Policy Conference, for having me on and entrusting me with this time. I'd like to say we can make a difference. We have before, and we can do it again. But you can't do it by waiting. You have to get involved now. You have to stand up, because it's hard to get your rights back, and it takes forever to do it in the courts. You have to make the Second Amendment apolitical. You have to make it toxic to any politician that wants gun control. Make it a real bad idea. So thank you again for your time. My name is Tony Simon from the Second is for Everyone.
There are moments in our lives that are permanently imprinted in our memories. For me, one of those moments occurred in the days in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina as I watched the news from my home near Austin, Texas. The storm made landfall, and the New Orleans levee system failed, causing catastrophic flooding, infrastructure failures, and chaos. First responders, who were able to leave their families, faced tremendous challenges when looking for and helping survivors. For the most part, families were on their own. More than 26,000 people sought shelter at the Superdome, where there were reports of mayhem and fatalities. There was no power or clean water supply, and sanitary conditions within the Superdome had rapidly deteriorated. Rumors spread in the press of reports of rapes, violent assaults, murders, drug abuse, and gang activity inside the building. Reports of gunshots disrupted medical evacuations at the dome, and after a National Guardsman was attacked with a metal rod, even the National Guard had to put up barricades of barbed wire to block people from exiting and to protect themselves from those in the dome. National Guard Major Ed Bush said, "Conditions are steadily declining. The systems have done all they can do. We don't know how much longer we can hold on. The game now is to squeeze everything we can out of the Superdome and then get out." Buses were staged for an evacuation. People were on the brink of rioting. Families were scared. And then this. I saw on the news a woman hand her two small children to strangers who were boarding a bus to Houston. She said, "Please take them. I'll try to find you in a few days." That moment changed the direction of my life. My heart shattered for this mother. I ached with how desperate she must have been. I turned to my husband and I asked, "What do I have to do so that that is never me? That no matter what happens, we can stay together as a family?" I began storing peanut butter and tuna fish so that if our city had a natural disaster or infrastructure failure, we could shelter in place for several days. My husband asked, "If people are desperate to survive, someone's going to kick in our door for our food. How am I going to stop them?" Until this conversation, I had never entertained the ideas of guns in our home with three children. I didn't let my kids play with toy guns. I felt that our society was too violent. I didn't understand the purpose of anyone having a firearm. I didn't live in the country or in a bad area of town. I was comforted that a cadre of first responders were only a phone call away. The idea of having a gun in our home seemed like an invitation to death itself. After all, I naively assumed that if I didn't bring a gun in my home, then there would never be a gun in my home. However, my husband's question made me realize that my home would only be gun-free until that moment when someone with a gun kicked in my door to loot for food or supplies that we had stored for our family. The reality hit me square in the face. Firearms enter gun-free zones. After arguing for gun control my entire life, I suddenly had no argument. I accepted I couldn't control what others do in desperate moments, but I could control my home environment to be prepared to weather any storm or crisis. This is when I began to consider a gun for him to use that would be locked away in a safe to be used only in an emergency. I finally felt ready to purchase our first firearm. There are many reasons that spur someone into gun ownership. For me, it was to protect my family if we were threatened. I realized I could not wait for a good Samaritan or first responder to help us. I could not trust prayer alone or good luck to protect us. I wanted to learn how to prepare for different scenarios and take responsibility for my personal safety. I slowly came to appreciate the ability to respond to lethal force in seconds rather than depending on police who are minutes away, if they're called, and if they can respond. I was motivated to seek empowerment in firearms training because I wanted us to have a fighting chance in the worst circumstances. So this was my journey. I acknowledged my family's vulnerability. I accepted that someone might bring a gun into my gun-free zone. I wanted my family to have immediate protection, and I was willing to take a firearms training course. Since 2011, I have invited thousands of women to follow my path. A Girl and a Gun Women's Shooting League has grown into the largest and most reputable women's organization in the firearms industry. Last year, we trained more than 19,000 women on self-defense, competitive shooting sports, recreational shooting, hunting, and more. We host local, regional, and national events on all firearms platforms and all types of shooting. Our largest event is our national conference, which takes place every spring for over 500 women who attend. It includes 3 days of training on a variety of topics for fun. Every year, it's a family reunion. Although we have about a dozen mother-daughter pairs that attend together, it seems that everyone arrives as friends but leaves as sisters. The heartbeat of our organization is the Girls' Night Out at the Range, which takes place at ranges across the country. We average about 300 of these events every month. Shooting skills are honed at the range, but hearts and minds are changed at the dinner table. Yes, we train at the range and practice critical skill sets for using firearms safely and proficiently, but by having dinner together afterwards and growing our community of women, we share, understand, and inspire. Women learned how to talk to their kids about guns, how to choose the right firearms and gear to meet their goals, how to be safe in their anti gun workplaces, how to get their carry license and training, how to get into competition, and so much more. And while many women come to us to learn self defense, the best part is that they realize how much fun shooting can be. We have so much fun shooting together, and women find meaningful friendships. The instructors who run our events are respected and talented, and the programs we offer are fully comprehensive to help a woman protect her family and live her best life. I'm energized that 3.3 million of all the new gun owners last year were women, and a girl in the gun is ready for them. Please help us reach this new demographic so we can learn their stories and encourage them to share their journey with others. When women are passionate about the Second Amendment, even the most fervent anti gunners like me will become indomitable advocates. In today's political climate, we've never faced so many strategists poised to take our firearms. Beto O'Rourke said, "Hell yes, we're going to take your guns," and the Biden administration has included gun control as part of its agenda. The Second Amendment acknowledges that the right to self defense is a fundamental right. The gun is the great equalizer that allows a woman to defend herself and her family against a much larger and stronger threat. The Second Amendment ensures that women can be equipped to be self sufficient and free from government, cultural, or criminal oppression and victimization. Advocacy is needed to safeguard our rights. As part of the DC Project, I frequently meet with legislators to be a counter voice to Moms Demand Action, a Bloomberg funded program for gun control. With a $50 million budget, they are organized and visible in their red shirts. It's very important to me that my legislators hear my voice too. I want them to see us in our teal shirts, not making demands, but promoting education, not legislation, to make our communities safer. I tell members of Congress that moms that make demands to take our rights don't speak for moms like me. I speak for mothers. I speak for women. I will continue to share my story, train and compete at the range, and dedicate my life to teaching the safe use and storage of firearms. It's my goal that there's a Girl and a Gun chapter at every range in America. It's my hope that all families will be equipped and prepared to weather any storm together.
Hi, my name is Rick Ector. I'm a firearms instructor and gun rights advocate from Detroit, Michigan. It is truly my honor to address you all. What I want to do first is to share with you why I do what I do. As a firearms instructor, typically I meet people who are the most vulnerable among us. During my travels, I routinely watch news media reports, and approximately 10 years ago, I saw a very disturbing story. In this story, here in my location of Detroit, Michigan, I saw an account in which a woman's body was discovered on the street. She was partially clothed and obviously had been raped and abused. I thought that that was a very disturbing and distressing sight, and I thought that someone should do something about it. I did not know who to present this concern to, but as I thought about it and talked with a lot of my friends, it came to me that I am a person, I am someone, and I thought that I could do something in some small way or fashion to address the problem in my local community of Detroit. I got a hold of a couple of firearms instructors and I gave them my plan. I told them, hey, why don't we contact women and ask them to participate in a free training? Let's get them together and let's give them a range safety briefing, and let's take them to the gun range and teach them how to use a semi-automatic pistol, 9mm in caliber, and teach them how to use the gun. Our plan was not to be an exhaustive concealed carry presentation that would be suitable for someone who desires to get a concealed pistol license, but it was a way that we could convey to them what a firearm is, what it can do, and how it could be a great aid in their desire to be safe in an unsafe city. Fortunately for me, I was able to contact a gun range who heard about my plan and was in full support. They donated the use of their facility and did not charge me any range fees. So I took to social media and I placed a couple of ads, hoping to get hundreds of women to participate. In the end, we got approximately 50 women who took us up on our most generous offer. As I went through the program, we gave them a range safety briefing. We taught them the fundamental firearm safety rules. We taught them how to hold a firearm, how to load it, how to safely discharge it, and how to unload it. I thought the event went very well. However, in the aftermath, as I was talking with a couple of mentors of mine in the gun rights community, one of them, his name is Mr. Ken Blanchard, otherwise known as Black Man with a Gun. And I shared with him that I was a little disappointed that I was only able to reach approximately 50 women. And true to form, Ken being a very positive individual, he told me that I had nothing to hang my head about and that we actually did a very good thing and that we should continue to grow the program. After I thought about it, I thought that I would continue the program. And every year, me and a lot of concerned citizens, fellow firearms instructors, we continue to build the program. The first year we did 50 students. The next year we had 100 students. Then there was 200. And then we started growing rather rapidly. Last year was the first year that I went to a 2-day format during the height of the pandemic. We accumulated enough students to literally blow my mind and the minds of other people who participated in the program. We trained over a 2-day period across 2 gun ranges over 1,930 plus women on how to safely operate a firearm. It is with the spirit of last year's success, now that we're no longer in a global pandemic, that we should continue on with a most ambitious project. This year, our plan is to train 4,000 women. We're going to do it over the same 2-day program. However, we're going to do it at 2 ranges simultaneously on that Saturday, on that Sunday, on this upcoming August 21st and August 22nd. This program is very important to me because I just find it objectionable that there are bad people in this world who would consider doing evil to the most vulnerable among us. And in my opinion, that is our women. Our program is open to women from the ages of 12 years of age all the way until they can still continue to walk and function as a law-abiding citizen. To date, our oldest person on record that has participated in this program has been the spry young age of 78 years old. The Second Amendment is extremely important. It was given to us by the framers. Actually, it was given to us by our Creator God. However, the framers took that right that was given to us by God and enshrined it in law in our Constitution. We all are familiar with the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment provides every citizen with the opportunity to keep and bear arms. In fact, in many state constitutions, including the state of Michigan, the bearing of arms is not only for the defense of himself, but it's also for the defense of the state. Accordingly, I take that right very seriously, and I have dedicated my life to being a gun rights advocate. I am very fervent in my belief that everyone has a right to own a firearm. They have an inherent right to self-defense. They have a right to protect their homes and their communities. It's very distressing to me that there are people in our country and even in our state, believe it or not, who are so emboldened to take away that right. The founding fathers had it right. They believed that one day we may have to defend ourselves against those who would want to take our rights away. And yes, the very government that we support may one day turn tyrannical and may desire to usurp and to diminish and to take away our right. It is imperative that citizens of this country, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, your age, your color, or your creed, is that if you value freedom, you will also value the right to self-defense. You will also value the right to keep and bear arms. The target audience that I would like to reach obviously would first of all include women who desire to be safe in unsafe communities. I would like to also enlist the support and the attention of people who have a concern about government overreach and tyranny. No one wants to face that day in which we may need to defend ourselves against not only bad guys, but also against tyrants. However, that is why we have the Second Amendment. I fervently believe in it, and I want to ensure that it is present for future generations. As not only a father and a grandfather, I want I want my children and my grandchildren and their heirs to know what it's like to live in a free country. And above and beyond that, I also want them to always have the right to protect themselves. And the best way to do that is with training and with a firearm. Thank you very much.
Hello, friends. I'm Derek LeBlanc, president of the Kids Safe Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit based in Oregon. Since our founding back in 2016, we've reached 22,000 kids in 5 states and have taught them life-saving skills on what to do if they ever came across an unsecured firearm. The goal is to empower our youth to make good, safe decisions if ever put in a dangerous situation. We seek to take the novelty away from our firearms and to teach children that guns are normal. Outreach is one of the most important things that we do. It's the outreach that reaches across all sides of the political divide because our approach is strictly about safety. There's room in the middle. This is where we wait. With so much division in the world, it's really important to provide viable solutions. The public seeks leadership, and there is a huge void. We have a very unique opportunity to fill that void and some. It all comes down to the message. We can all agree that saving lives is the goal, but only some organizations know how to make this possible. One thing that we must be addressed is that prohibitionists have been working since 1934 to regulate firearms, all in the name of saving lives. The only problem here is that it's never worked or it never will. As a society, we cannot simply legislate morality or evil intent. This is where gun control movement is flawed from the beginning. It has never been about saving lives, but all about control and profiting off of the carnage. What we should be shouting from the rooftops is taking away our guns will never do anything to prevent gun crimes. As 2A advocates and responsible gun owners, we are not the problem. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We all get it. We all know what's at stake. All while politicians and gun control activists hide behind armed security plus failed policies. This is where outreach is so important. If we learned anything from the pandemic and the societal unrest over the past year, is that Americans, we need our guns. There's an estimated 425 million guns in the country, with nearly 110 million gun owners. The makeup is so diverse, which contradicts the claims of the prohibitionists that all gun owners are all old white guys. This is offensive to so many different demographics. This is where we make up ground. Proper outreach is critical. One thing that we should realize, though, as advocates, is we need quality over quantity. What I mean by that is we need votes. We need engagement from new gun owners. Some might not identify politically like us, but if we can get to them and have them understand the consequences of bad votes and legislation, maybe we can stem the tide of gun control. It takes great courage to be able to have civil conversations with those that don't see eye to eye with us. This is where we need to be out of our comfort zones. We have to evolve the way we interact with others. We have to be conscious of the messaging that we put out. Good messaging is the way to get conversions. What I mean by conversions is not necessarily getting someone that typically turns left to go right, but getting someone to vote with their gun rights. This is how we're going to win going forward. 2020, 2021 has been a good year for us in the courts. We have had some major court victories thanks to the Second Amendment Foundation, other big organizations doing the heavy lifting. There is so much more work left to do, and the fight will continue indefinitely, unfortunately, because of the irrational fear of inanimate objects. Education is an important component to helping safeguard the Republic. The Republic is dependent on the future generation. This is why I've dedicated my mission to their safety. Part of our problem is on our side as well. It is very common for us to get emotional with our responses and reactionary. It's exhausting to always be on the defensive. The media, big tech, and the elites censor our expertise. We are viewed as the problem, even though we have viable solutions. No agreements can be met. The division continues, and lives are continued to be lost. It's a vicious cycle. I don't know about all of you, but I'm sick of it. This is where we have to clock in as advocates, activists, and influencers. We have to outreach to those who are new to the fold. We need support from new gun owners. I do believe we need quality over quantity here. We need those that might not align with us politically to at least help us protect our gun rights. We do this by being welcoming and setting expectations for our side on what's acceptable behavior and to hold people accountable for their actions that aren't becoming of us as gun owners. We have to evolve the way we interact with others. Some of the things that I see put out there, to be quite frank, are embarrassing. We are always quick to posture flex and cyber intimidate. This is not the way. This only fuels the fire. We need even keels here because we need to attract those in the middle that are not on our side of the aisle. The united message going is all of our God-given right to self-defense. This message crosses all political, racial, socioeconomic, and other divides. Our two-way rights unite us all as Americans. This is our hill to defend. We need numbers, though, that might come through our important outreach efforts. While there might be a time when we might have to flex and show our muscle, this is not the time. This is the time to reach those that need us most, to help them understand the importance of our two-way rights. Together, we can help prevent further restriction. One thing that the anti-gun side must understand, there's over 425 million guns in this country, and they aren't going anywhere, period. It's past time we all coexist. Our outreach opportunities are beginning to expand, and this is how we take advantage of it. We are in a very unique position. We are seeing policies that are flawed from the start to unravel. This is our opportunity to expand our outreach into different segments of society. Positive exposure to firearms will help overcome fear and dispel any myths. We can do this. In the past year, there have been so many victories in court. We must keep up the positive momentum. Getting an infusion of new gun owners that understand the founding principles of our Second Amendment will help us in the long game. We need to be focused in the short term and in the long term to help protect our rights. I have dedicated much of my life to the protection of children. It is my belief that the future of the Republic depends on our children. We have to reach them at a young age and teach them the importance of safety and showcase that firearms aren't scary if used responsibly. Though throughout my career as president of a safety organization, our outreach program has been one of our biggest priorities. We have to reach children and families to show them the importance of safety. Truly, safety is a family affair that every member should have a part in it being success. This happens by being in a position to have very important conversations with the parents. With rights do come responsibilities. Education is something that is viable if given a chance. I will leave you with this. It is something that I adhere to, and it helps me keep me focused. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? I try to think of something greater myself. It's these thoughts that help me guide me on my mission to help me keep our important message of safety pure. You can find out more information about the important work that we're doing to protect children on our website, kidsafefoundation.org. You can also follow us across all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. 0 firearm accidents is the only acceptable goal. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicki. Today I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about you. What brought you here today? What do you hope to learn? Over this conference, what will you do with what you learn? Today, more is at stake than just the Second Amendment. Freedom itself is under peril. Freedom. What does it mean to you? How valuable is it? What would your life be like without it? Would it be worth living? What about your kids, grandkids? Patrick Henry's famous quote, "Give me liberty or give me death." How many of us share those values? Truth is, Americans, regardless of who or what we are, we have more that unites us and divides us. Ronald Reagan's famous saying that an 80% friend is not a 20% enemy. I operate on a 10-90 model. Short of somebody wanting to do me harm, I'm willing to set aside all differences and work for common goals. If we allow ourselves to stay divided, we will lose our country. Our natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness cross cultural, economic, political, and social divides. We don't have to like each other, but as Americans, we have to have each other's backs. Truth is that far more unites us than divides us. Most Americans just want to live in peace. They just want to be left alone. Our country is in peril. To save our country, we must come together. None of us can do this on our own, but if we come together, work as teams, we are invincible. All of us have unique gifts, skills, talents, resources. Individually, we have limits, but together, we will be invincible. None of us can do everything, but all of us can do something. Reality is, if all of us do something, we will win. Our opponents are not invincible. Yes, they have wealth, but we have untapped human potential. Truth is, for a long time, less than 1% of gun owners were in the battle. But times have changed. Many are now stepping up. They're taking action, and we're seeing results. Close to half the U.S. counties are now Second Amendment sanctuary counties. More states just passed constitutional carry. We're on a roll. All of us are capable of being influencers. We just have to be respectful when we speak up. You'd be surprised how many people agree with us. If we lose our freedom, it won't be because we lost the fight. It'll be because too many sat on the sidelines and forfeited the fight. Our opponents are doing everything to silence us. Their end game is to eliminate our freedom. That is what this is all about. Silence is consent. Silence is complicity. Silence is cowardice. Silence is the end of freedom. Are you going to be silent? I'm not. Americans are voting on gun control with their wallets. Gun and ammo sales are record highs. We have millions of new gun owners. Even in California, cultural trends are moving pro-gun. Defund the police. Empty the jails. DAs that refuse to prosecute. No bail. Even in California, people are waking up. Californians bought 1 million guns last year. 60% of Californians now live in counties that are now virtual shall issue CCW. I have created this video content to give you educational tools to help you. Visit me at nicolestallard.locals.com. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Gottlieb, and I am the Director of Outreach for the Second Amendment Foundation, as well as the creator of 2A Gaming. Before I get into anything, I just want to say a huge thank you to my wife, who's worked so hard to put together the videos for us. I'm so proud of you, and incredibly thankful that this has all come together. So this group of speakers is all about Second Amendment culture. Something that can range from defending yourself and your family, putting food on the table, or in my case, it is something that most people outside of the 2A community don't think or hear about. So for those of you watching who may not know, I am the son of two people who have spent most of their lives working in all kinds of ways to help protect the Second Amendment. I think of myself as a very different side of what most people think of gun culture. So over the years at SAF, I have met so many people from very, very diverse backgrounds who all share a respect for what the Second Amendment truly means. And they've helped me learn so much about what we can do in order to better protect our rights and grow. The Second Amendment applies to all Americans, and that is something that should always be the focus and the priority of this community. I started 2A Gaming as a way to reach out and educate people on the Second Amendment, as well as work behind the scenes to protect video game content in relation to firearms. Even though I grew up around guns and Second Amendment Foundation, I didn't really get interested in anything 2A related until I started playing games. For so many people, video games are their first and sometimes their only interaction with firearms. I remember when I turned 16 and was allowed to go to SHOT Show. It was my first show, and I went around to all of the exhibitors, looking for things that I recognized from games, and I knew everything about them. And my parents were like, how does he know about these? He's never seen these before. And it was because through these video games, that was where all of my firearms knowledge came from. I think what people don't realize, too, is that in a lot of these video games, they work with manufacturers. So a good example is, it's not as popular now, but PUBG was a huge game. And there's a lot of manufacturers that worked with them. I remember it was SHOT Show a couple years ago talking to Chris, who makes the Vector. And they actually worked with the company in order to make the 3D model for the firearm that they added to the game. And you see this with a lot of games, including Tarkov, which is a big one. So all of these games actually work with firearms company, yet it's not something people really talk so much about anymore because it's become so taboo. So while most people see guns for protection or hunting, for me, they've always been about sport and competition. That's where video games came in. I got into video games in high school, and I started playing competitively in leagues, and I just loved the idea that there was a skill base to it. It wasn't just, I liked shooting. I was competitive when it came to actual real shooting. I think I always wanted to participate in the biathlon because I found it fascinating, and it was the only time I ever really got to see shooting on TV. And so video games were kind of the way I could do it, especially since I couldn't go to the range. I was in high school. I was out of the country. It just wasn't a thing. And so in the year or so that I branched kind of into this other industry, with the project, I found that the culture war towards guns has taken on another side. And it's being used to discourage people, especially younger people, from having any positive experiences with firearms for themselves. So from high schools banning certain games from competitions to lawsuits targeting advertising. That was something I worked on, communicating with school districts, communicating with companies, trying to figure out what was going on in the sense of high schools wanted to have esports available for kids to compete with other high schools in their state, as well as nationally. And Fortnite, which is a shooter game and is incredibly popular from all different age ranges, they refuse to allow it. The company allows it as a club, but you can't represent your high school. And I know there was a lot of people who watched a teenager win, I think it was like $3 million, might be more than that, playing Fortnite, winning the world championship. And they say, I want to do that. I love this game. But then their schools are telling them, you can't do that because it involves guns. And that just is a huge turnoff. And this is where we can educate these people and say, look, this is where it becomes a Second Amendment issue, and it's something you should care about. It's not just whatever you hear about guns in the news is kind of what it is. It's you truly get to see for yourself. These kids are being affected by the laws, even if it's just a video game. So the whole idea is to only allow one narrative about guns and the Second Amendment so that it's easier to discourage people from exercising their rights. If you go on popular streaming platforms or look at video game distribution services like Steam, you will see that shooter games are at the top of every list. In Steam, the game that actually got me into Firearms, Counter-Strike, is number one for active users, and it's 5 times almost the third place game, which is ironically another shooter. And if you look on Twitch and YouTube, shooter games are generally the most watched. It's even getting that way on TikTok now. You're seeing a lot of people post video game clips of cool things they do, and people love seeing it because then they go out and try and do it themselves, etc. So this whole streaming thing, the whole gaming thing, it's mostly an untapped resource for us to help educate people who have some experience with firearms before, the anti-gun community tells them that they're bad for liking video games and liking guns because it involves guns. And that's just not true. And that's not fair to these kids. So from teaching gun safety to teaching activism, it's a great way to grow our community and help ensure that the Second Amendment is protected in the future. I'm really looking forward to the next year, as we're going to be reaching out to multiple content creators to kind of co-brand things and build partnerships that we found with a lot of them who are actually firearms enthusiasts. And we're even hoping to host a range day event with a bunch of streamers that we would obviously promote, teaching people, both those with experience as well as those without, just to try and grow it. You can catch us on Twitch as 2A Gaming, also updating the website at 2a.gg. Thank you guys so much for being here for this conference, especially being digital. I love it because that's kind of what I do. We're reaching more people. But that being said, it means a lot that you guys are here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Cheng, and I'm History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion. And I'm really excited to talk to you today on this panel about the Second Amendment and its importance in pop culture and social media and why it's important. In particular, I want to focus in on the pop culture component of this topic. And I want to tell you a little bit about my background as a self-taught amateur shooter who ended up going pro. And, so this was about 10 years ago when I was a gun owner, but I was not a Second Amendment advocate at all. And for me, guns was just a fun thing I did on occasion, go to the range and punch some holes in paper, and then the guns kind of go back in the safe. And, I really wasn't doing much other than target shooting at the time. Now, when Top Shot Season 1 started to air on the History Channel, it was such an important moment in my development and maturity and understanding of the gun community and of the Second Amendment. And so let me dive a little bit deeper into what I mean. Prior to Top Shot, the primary avenues where I learned about and saw guns was pretty much kind of movies, TV, the nightly news, which we all know is just frequently terrible with all sorts of crimes being committed with firearms, and is generally just overwhelmingly a negative perception and a negative experience with firearms. But Top Shot was this incredible firearms competition, and not just firearms, but just a weapons competition, bows and arrows, and throwing knives and throwing weapons, but then all the way to, fully automatic machine guns, grenade launchers. It was just an incredible experience to watch these normal, everyday Americans shooting some of the most fun and incredibly cool weapons out there. And so this pop culture component is so important because it portrays a positive image of responsible firearms usage. And so, I remember distinctly watching an episode in season 1 of Top Shot where the competitors are shooting an AR-15. And as a civilian, I had never shot an AR-15, let alone an M4 or an M16. And so as an inexperienced, unknowledgeable, newbie, I just assumed that at the time that AR-15s and M16s and M4s and all fully automatic weapons were only allowed to be used by law enforcement and military, right? And so watching this challenge though of in Top Shot, right, I was watching civilians, right, shoot this AR-15 alongside military and law enforcement and all these other Americans from across the country, and it triggered this question in my head where I asked, okay, I'm seeing civilians shooting an AR-15. I wonder if I, as a civilian, can own one here in California. So naturally, right, I went down that rabbit hole of learning about, well, what is the process, here in California? And yes, right, I bought my first AR-15 after watching an episode of Top Shot on TV. And that was a very simple yet impactful way of educating Americans around, well, what are our gun rights and what's possible, right? Can I own an AR-15? And then of course, as I purchased that very first AR-15, the first of many, I will admit, I learned here in California, well, we have all of these assault weapon regulations at the state level. And at the time, we required a bullet button. And then I was asking myself, well, wait, what is this bullet button thing? Why is it only required in California? And obviously it's now spread to other states or similar restrictions around assault weapons. And I just remember saying to myself, well, this doesn't make any sense. It's not an effective deterrent or way of stopping criminals, right? And so then one question leads to another. Why are my Second Amendment rights here in California restricted and less than Second Amendment rights in other states and other parts of our country? So the simple act of having positive representations of gun usage and gun ownership by responsible users is so important. When I won Top Shot back in 2012, I thought I was just going to be, I'd have some, 5 seconds of fame and then go back to my day job in technology in Silicon Valley, and that would sort of be it. But it was really that moment of being on Top Shot that converted me into a Second Amendment advocate, where I realized that, guns aren't just about having fun. This is about our freedom. This is about what our country was founded on. This is about protecting our Constitution and pushing back against government and pushing back against gun control advocates and gun grabbers who are dead set on taking away our individual right to bear arms. And it's extremely concerning to me where we are constantly allowing the government to whittle away on our personal and individual freedoms without a fight. One thing that I think is so important for us to understand is the mentality of anti-gunners or people who are afraid of guns for either rational or irrational reasons. And so I want to tell a very quick story about a new shooter who I was training about 8 years ago. And I will never forget, this one particular woman who I was training had a reaction that really helped me understand the psyche and the fear around guns and the attitude, the negative attitude and perception that some Americans have about guns in our country and really around the world. So here's what happened. She wanted to shoot my AR-15, and of course, I was, excited that she was interested, right, in shooting an AR and really experiencing it firsthand. She fired a few rounds downrange, rounds on target. It was great. It was, it was like pretty much what you want to see out of a new shooter who's got, good safe handling, who's, putting rounds on target. So we put the gun on safe, gun on the table, and I asked her how did it feel? And I was expecting sort of, typical binary reaction. I either like it was amazing or I didn't like it. She said to me, "Wow, I am so surprised that I didn't feel evil shooting this gun." And I was really confused at first. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? That's sort of, tell me more. I don't even understand like what you mean here." And she goes, "Well, I just assumed that, when I would shoot particular guns that they would make me feel a certain way or compel me or make me feel like becoming a violent or evil person." And so while she was shooting a Ruger 10/22, she didn't feel any of that negative emotion or fear or that sense of evil creeping upon her. But when she shot the AR-15, she was fully expecting to be overcome by evil and a feeling of wanting to go commit violence. And so I think that to me was just jaw-dropping. And I remember thinking, this is how some Americans feel about guns in general, and then in particular about the AR-15, because they have such a deeply seated negative perception and emotional response to this particular weapons platform. And I really commended the student for really educating herself, right? And shooting an AR-15 for herself and learning firsthand that when you shoot an AR-15, you don't start feeling evil and you don't start feeling like you're going to go commit, mass murder, right, with an AR-15. That is just literally not how this works. And the existence of AR-15s doesn't spread evil. This is the narrative that we have to fight against. And this is why pop culture is so important, because pop culture is such a huge window into not just American culture, but gun culture. And it allows us to talk to the world at scale. Thank you for listening to my speech about why pop culture is so important in Second Amendment advocacy. And remember that it's sometimes just that one little video clip or seeing one of us speaking and advocating about why the Second Amendment and why personal gun ownership and personal responsibility around safe gun handling is so important, because that one moment could convert someone into becoming a gun owner, or at least come to the gun range, or in our best case scenario, they become a Second Amendment advocate like me. And so with that, thank you again so much. I'm Top Shot Chris Cheng, and I hope you enjoy the rest of GRPC 2021.
Hello, Gun Rights Policy Conference, and everyone that is watching online. It is great to see that the Second Amendment Foundation is changing and adapting to this new format. My name is Charlie Cook. I've got a YouTube channel and a podcast called Riding Shotgun with Charlie. I get to take members of the Second Amendment community and drive them around in my car as we have an interview. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to drive all sorts of people from all walks of life all over the country. And I get to find out how it's affected and even changed their lives. We're all part of the gun culture. You and I, anyone who writes about it, anyone who has a radio show or a podcast, anyone that's an instructor, anyone that's a hunter, anyone that's a competitive shooter, we're all part of the gun culture. As the Reverend Ken Blanchard said many times, anyone that gives you a gun is family, and anyone that wants to take one of your guns is an enemy. In the words of the old Sister Sledge song, we are family. A few years ago, I was at a coffee shop doing some work on my laptop. I overheard a couple guys that were talking, and they were talking about bird hunting. They were talking about deer hunting. So I figured I would go over, and as an instructor, I'd give them my business card and say, hey, listen, if you know anyone that wants to get their gun license, I'm your man. Well, my business card has a handgun on it. And they took a look at the handgun and they said, handguns are dangerous. And I was kind of taken aback by this. I'm like, what are they talking about? They went on to tell me that they had a friend who had a handgun, and they had a safe that was locked, and that person tried to shoot into the safe. Needless to say, ricochet went everywhere. I don't know if someone got hurt, but that's not part of the story. The story to me is that these guys, who aren't into handguns because somebody was shooting at a safe, these guys are also part of the gun culture. That's also the time that I had this idea, and I realized that not all gun owners are created equally. There are people that want to carry and that do not want to hunt. And there are people that want to hunt that do not want to carry. And none of us know what's going on with the shotgunners. There's a battle between Hollywood and gun owners, and it's been going on for a number of years. We know the majority of the Hollywood elites are anti-gun folks, but they do not have a problem hiring privately armed security details to protect them and their houses and their events. In the movies, they don't have a problem using firearms incorrectly, having bad tactics, keeping their finger on the trigger, and having endless magazines. But what they do show us is that often a good guy with a gun can defeat a bad guy. And that is probably something that we need to point out to them, the hypocrisy of what they're trying to preach in their movies. On social media, there's a fight for the Second Amendment as well. Yes, these platforms are privately owned businesses, but they've also become the town square of the 21st century. There's a lot of stifling of pro-freedom voices, which is a First Amendment violation. We can complain about it, or we can deal with it. And while we're dealing with it, we can find other platforms. So if you're moving from one social media platform to another social media platform, you need to let people know that you're moving. And you need to learn to adapt to that new platform. But let's face it, the new platform's not going to work like the old platform. And there is going to be some sort of a learning curve there. And that's okay. When we first got on the big platforms that we're on, there was a learning curve for that as well. And honestly, I don't know, once or twice a year they change the format of everything, and things appear different for 3 months, and then it goes back to the way it used to be. So there's still a learning curve with this regular social media platforms that we're on. Social media is great for people that are content creators, whether you're a YouTuber or a podcaster or a writer. It's good for the people that are instructors because you can post your classes. You can post articles of things that are going on in the gun community. And one of the things that I find most beneficial is having connections from around the country to let people in my state know what is going on around the country. Our representation of the Second Amendment on social media platforms is important because firearm ownership is normal. We're here, we're armed, get over it. After several life changes, I found myself in a Toastmaster group. And one of the projects I had to work on was the Communicating on Video project. And I had to do 5 projects. I had to interview someone in a talk show format, be interviewed in a talk show format, do a press conference, do an editorial video, and I had to make a video to teach people how to do speeches. I would also see the carpool karaoke videos, and that led to me realizing that, hey, I can interview someone in the car, kind of like carpool karaoke, and we already have a term for that. It's called riding shotgun. And that is how riding shotgun came about. I first went to GRPC in 2016 in Tampa. I knew Mark Walters and I knew Ken Blanchard, and that was it. I didn't know anyone else, and nobody knew who I was. But I started telling them what I was working on and what I was working towards. They accepted me, and they invited me in and made me feel like I was one of them. One of the things I love about Gun Rights Policy Conference is it really is a family reunion. Back to the family thing. I didn't realize what kind of a family reunion it was until I went to it my second year, and I felt like I was officially in the club. What I get from riding shotgun with Charlie is the opportunity to connect with people all over the country, all races, all religions. And I want to be able to put their story out about how they got into gun ownership and how gun ownership changed their life. Most of my passengers have given me some sort of a nugget of wisdom or inspiration or some sort of motivation. And I find when I go back and edit my shows, they say 4 or 5 or 6 things that really get me thinking, that really motivate me, that really inspire me to maybe look at my life a little bit differently. All the things I get, the friendship, the friendships, the relationships, the connections, the networking, it's all really good for the soul. Our family is growing. Our culture is growing. We need to accept everyone into it. We might not agree on 9 versus 45. We might not agree on a Glock versus a 1911. We might not even agree on politics. But we are all part of the gun culture, and we are all family.